I've been held up in this city for a while due to the rain.
Oh, I see. So as soon as it stops raining, you'll leave.
I hope that the rain will never stop.
What?
If it continues, I'll be able to stay here forever.
The fascists can be beaten. It's in our hands.
That wasn't meant to be a joke.
Hello, and welcome back to the Sleepy Stream. If you're here, I see there are a couple of you already in chat. Hello, Anderson. How's it going? We're just coming live. Nice of you to join us. I have a special edition. I'll let you in on this because you're early today, so no one else on the stream is going to know. It's super secret. But I got the moon. That's right. I'm not even joking. I am now the proud owner of the moon. I pulled it out of the sky last night. It was super intense. You can see it all up close there. Oh my god, look at that. I can pull some magic. Oh. There we go. It's a bit finicky, the moon. Voila. There, it's now the color of cheese. Oh, now it's a blood moon. Oh, now it's a blue moon. Once in a blue moon, you come to the sleepy stream, and you're on time. That's right, I'm Gru. Hello to everyone joining us on the Sleepy Stream tonight. We're going to get going pretty quickly here. I've got for us Harry Potter and Philosopher's Stone. That's right, boys. We're going on to Chapter 3. Now, before we do, I hope you guys are all getting ready, nice and cozy, as per usual. I've got my little woofer here with me. He's ready to read along to some Harry Potter, listen to the bad accents, and of course, I've got a nice warm mug of tea, and tonight it's going to be licorice tea from me. Tasty, tasty, tasty. Tasty. It is tasty tea. Okay. Anyways, without further ado, I think we should probably get right on in to Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Chapter 3. Anyways, before we do, actually, I'm going to give it a minute of stalling, just a little minute in case anyone else wants to last minute file in. I hope everyone's been having quite a lovely day. I've had the longest day. Hey, Surya, how's it going? Nice to see you on stream. I've had quite a long day. I got up at 7, of course, this morning for my 9 a.m., and fun fact, I went to bed at 2:43 a.m. basically the evening before, so running on 4 hours of sleep, no worries, you know, we can deal. It's all for the Sleepy Stream. Anyways, sleepy stream it is, though. So, if you'll recall, as from last night, we just finished up the very famous moment at the reptile house in the London Zoo where the glass vanishes, and Harry is left talking to a snake before Uncle Vernon locks him up in his cupboard under the stairs. Why do I do that to myself? For the stream, Surya. It's for the stream. If we're not here daily at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which we are, then what's the point? Also, worth noting, it's not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, but Thursdays and Sundays it is. The stream starts 2 hours earlier, technically, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and for 2 hours we will be playing some video game. In this case, Thursday, we're going to continue. We've got a playthrough of Nier Automata running, so we're going to be playing Nier Automata on Thursdays. I think Thursdays are going to tend to be the more serious story-based games, and then the weekends are going to be casual, fun things. So this weekend, if you were to tune in on Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you would probably catch me playing Overwatch, or Don't Starve, or Zork even, or something silly like that. But that'll just be casual gaming, and then we'll save the Thursday nights for the more serious stuff. Okay. Nice. Alright, exactly. So, I think without further ado, it's time to get into some Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and I know this is the third time I've said that on stream now, but let's do it. Anyways, we're on Chapter 3, which is Letters from No One. And if you'll notice... Ooh, what's that? Is that a set of owl talons holding that letter? And also... Dudley looking pretty chubby. I almost said chudley. Dudley looking chudley in that bottom corner, looking very pleased with himself for some reason. Anyways, the letters from no one. The escape of the Brazilian boa constrictor earned Harry his longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed out of his cupboard again, the summer holidays had started, and Dudley had already broken his new cinecamera, crashed his remote control aeroplane, and, first time on his racing bike, knocked down old Mrs. Figg as she crossed Privet Drive on her crutches. Harry was glad school was over, but there was no escaping Dudley's gang, who visited the house every single day. Piers, Dennis, Malcolm, and Gordon were all big and stupid, but as Dudley was the biggest and stupidest of the lot, he was their leader. The rest of them were all quite happy to join in Dudley's favorite sport, Harry hunting. This is why Harry spent as much time as possible outside of the house, wandering around and thinking about the end of the holidays, where he could see a tiny ray of hope. When September came around, he would be going off to secondary school, and, for the first time in his life, he wouldn't be with Dudley. Dudley had placed at Uncle Vernon's old school, Smeltings. Piers Polkiss was going there too. Harry, on the other hand, was going to Stonewall High, the local comprehensive. Dudley thought this was very funny. They stuffed people's heads down the toilets first day at Stonewall, he told Harry. Want to come upstairs and practice? No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilet's never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick. Then he ran before Dudley could work out what he had said. One day in July, Aunt Petunia took Dudley to London to buy a Smeltings uniform, leaving Harry at Mrs. Figg's. Mrs. Figg wasn't as bad as usual. It turned out she had broken her leg tripping over one of her cats, and she didn't seem quite as fond of them as before. She let Harry watch television and gave him a bit of chocolate cake that tasted as though she had had it for several years. That evening, Dudley paraded around the living room for the family in his brand new uniform. Smelting's boys wore maroon tailcoats, orange knickerbockers, and flat straw hats they called boaters. They also carried knobbly sticks used for hitting each other while the teachers weren't looking. This was supposed to be good training for later life. As he looked at Dudley in his new knickerbockers, Uncle Vernon said gruffly that it was the proudest moment of his life. Aunt Petunia burst into tears and said she couldn't believe it was her Ickle Dudleykins. He looked so handsome and grown up. Harry didn't trust himself to speak. He thought two of his ribs might have already cracked from trying not to laugh. There was a horrible smell in the kitchen the next morning when Harry went in for breakfast. It seemed to be coming from a large metal tub in the sink. He went over to have a look. The tub was full of what looked like dirty rags swimming in gray water. "What's this?" he asked Aunt Petunia. Her lips tightened, as they always did when he dared to ask a question. "Your new uniform," she said. Harry looked in the bowl. "Oh," he said. "I didn't realize it would be quite so wet." "Don't be stupid," snapped Aunt Petunia. "I'm dyeing some of Dudley's old things gray for you. It'll look just like everyone else's when I'm finished." Harry seriously doubted this, but thought it best not to argue. He sat down at the table and tried not to think about how he was going to look at his first day at Stonewall High. Like he was wearing old bits of old elephant skin, probably. Dudley and Uncle Vernon came in. Both of them wrinkled their noses because of the smell from Harry's uniform. Uncle Vernon opened his newspaper as usual, and Dudley banged his smelting stick, which he carried everywhere, on the table. They heard the click of the letterbox, and the flop of letters on the doormat. "Get the post, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon from behind his paper. "Make Harry get it." "Get the post, Harry." "Make Dudley get it." "Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." Harry dodged the smelting stick and went to get the post. 3 things lay on the doormat. A postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, who was holding on the Isle of Wight, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at it, his heart twanging like a giant elastic bang. No one, ever, in his whole life, had written to him. Who would? He had no friends, no other relatives. He didn't belong to the library, so he never even got rude notes asking for books back. Yet here it was, a letter addressed so plainly that there could be no mistake. Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Winching, Surrey. The envelope was thick and heavy, made of a yellowish parchment, and the address was written in an emerald green ink. There was no stamp. Turning the envelope over, his hand trembling, Harry saw a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake, surrounding a large letter H. "Hurry up, boy!" shouted Uncle Vernon from the kitchen. "What are you doing? Checking the letter for bombs?" He chuckled at his own joke. Harry went back into the kitchen, still staring at his letter. He handed Uncle Vernon the bill and the postcard, sat down, and slowly began to open the yellow envelope. Uncle Vernon ripped open the bill, snorted in disgust, and flipped over the postcard. "Marge is ill," he informed Aunt Petunia. "Ate a funny whelk." "Dad," said Dudley. "Dad, Harry's got something." Harry was on the point of unfolding his letter, which was written on the same heavy parchment as the envelope, when it was jerked sharply out of his hand by Uncle Vernon. "That's mine," said Harry, trying to snatch it back. "Who'd be writing to you?" sneered Uncle Vernon, shaking the letter open with one hand and glancing at it. His face went from red to green faster than a set of traffic lights. And it didn't stop there. Within seconds, there's some echo going on. Not sure what the echo is coming from, because, aside from my room, that is. I will soundproof my room for future regard, otherwise I'm afraid I can't help you. I don't think... Oh, you know what? I think I know exactly what it is. Boop. How long's the echo been there? Has that been there the whole stream? Oh no. Oh no, I can't upload it now. It's gonna be awful. Okay, I fixed it. Yep, fixed it. Don't worry. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. Anyways, back to Harry Potter. Within seconds, it was the grayish white of old porridge. "Petunia!" he gasped. Dudley tried to grab for the letter to read it, but Uncle Vernon held it high out of his reach. Aunt Petunia took it curiously and then read the first line. For a moment, she looked as though she might faint. She clutched at her throat and made a choking noise. "Vernon! Oh my goodness, Vernon!" They stared at each other, seeming to have forgotten that Harry and Dudley were still in the room. Dudley wasn't used to being ignored. He gave his father a sharp tap on the head with his smelting sticks. "I want to read the letter aloud," he said loudly. "I want to read it," said Harry, furiously, "as it's mine." "Get out, both of you," croaked Uncle Vernon, stuffing the letter back in the envelope. Harry didn't move. "I want my letter," he shouted. "Let me see it," demanded Dudley. "Out!" roared Uncle Vernon, and he took both Harry and Dudley by the scruffs of their necks and threw them into the hall, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Harry and Dudley promptly had a furious but silent fight over who would listen in through the keyhole. Dudley won, so Harry, glasses dangling from one ear, lay flat on his stomach and listened to the crack between the door and the floor. "Vernon," Aunt Petunia was saying in a quivering voice, "look at the address. How could they possibly know where he sleeps? You don't think they're watching the house?" "Watching, spying, might be following us," muttered Uncle Vernon wildly. But what should we do, Vernon? Should we write them back? Tell them we don't want..." Harry could see Uncle Vernon's shiny black shoes pacing up and down the kitchen. "No," he said finally. "No, we'll ignore it. If they don't get an answer, yes, that's best. We won't do anything. But I'm not having one in the house, Petunia. Didn't we swear when we took him we'd stamp out this dangerous nonsense?" That evening, when he got back home from work, Uncle Vernon did something he had never done before. He visited Harry in his cupboard. "Where's my letter?" said Harry, the moment Uncle Vernon had squeezed through the door. "Who's writing to me?" "No one. It was addressed to you by mistake," said Uncle Vernon shortly. "I have burned it." "It was not a mistake," said Harry angrily. "It had my cupboard on it." "Silence!" yelled Uncle Vernon, and a couple spider webs fell from the ceiling. He took a few deep breaths, and then forced his face into a smile, which looked quite painful. Yes, Harry, about this cupboard. Your aunt and I have been thinking. You're really getting a bit big for it. We think it might be nice if you moved into Dudley's second bedroom." "Why?" said Harry. "Don't ask questions," snapped his uncle. "Take the stuff upstairs. Now!" The Dursleys had 4 bedrooms. One for Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia, one for visitors, usually Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, one for where Dudley slept, and one for where Dudley kept all his toys and things that wouldn't fit into his first bedroom. It only took Harry one trip upstairs to move everything he owned from the cupboard to this room. He sat down on the bed and stared around him. Nearly everything in here was broken. The month-old Cinecamera was lying atop a small working tank Dudley had once driven over the next-door neighbor's dog. In the corner was Dudley's first-ever television set, which he had put his foot through when his favorite program had been cancelled. There was a large bird cage that had once held a parrot that Dudley had swapped at school for a real air rifle, which was sitting on the shelf with the end all bent up because Dudley had sat on it. Other shelves were full of books. They were the only things in the room that looked as though they had never been touched. From downstairs came the sound of Dudley bawling at his mother. "I don't want him in there. I need that room. Make him get out." Harry sighed and stretched out on the bed. Yesterday he'd have given anything to be up here. Today he'd rather be back in his cupboard with that letter than up here without it. Also, from before, because it is not mentioned sooner. Nope, never mind. Sorry, brief interruption. I don't know what that YouTube link is, but I will click through it after the stream. Next morning at breakfast, everyone was rather quiet. Dudley was in shock. He had screamed, whacked his father with his smelting stick, been sick on purpose, kicked his mother, and thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof, and he still didn't have his room back. Harry was thinking about this time yesterday, bitterly wishing he had opened the letter in the hall. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia kept looking at each other darkly. When the post arrived, Uncle Vernon, who seemed to be trying to be nice to Harry, made Dudley go and get it. They heard him banging things with his smelting stick all the way down the hall. Then he shouted, "There's another one! Mr. H. Potter, the smallest bedroom, 4 Privet Drive!" With a strangled cry, Uncle Vernon leapt from his seat and ran down the hall. Harry right behind him. Uncle Vernon had to wrestle Dudley to the ground to get the letter from him, which was made difficult from the fact that Harry had grabbed Uncle Vernon around the neck from behind. And here we have a lovely scene of Harry wrestling Dudley and Uncle Vernon trying to get his letter, and atop this page in the corner you can see a few more letters floating around. Okay, sorry, where were we? After a minute of confused fighting, in which everyone got hit a lot by the smelting stick, Uncle Vernon straightened up, gasping for breath with Harry's letter clutched in his hand. "Go to your cupboard. I mean, your bedroom," he wheezed at Harry. "Dudley, go. Just go." Harry walked round and round his new room. Someone knew he had moved out of his cupboard, and they seemed to know he hadn't received his first letter. Surely that meant they'd try again, and this time he'd make sure they didn't fail. He had a plan. The repaired alarm clock rang at 6 o'clock the next morning. Harry turned it off quickly and dressed silently. He mustn't wake the Dursleys. He stole downstairs without turning on any of the lights. He was going to wait for the postman on the corner of Privet Drive and get the letters for number 4 first. His heart hammered as he crept across the dark hallway towards the front door. Ah! Harry leapt into the air. He had trodden on something big and squashy on the doormat. Something alive! Lights clicked on upstairs, and to his horror, Harry realized that the big squashy something had been his uncle's face. Uncle Vernon had been laying at the foot of the front door in a sleeping bag, clearly making sure that Harry didn't do the exact thing he had been trying to do. He shouted at Harry for about half an hour and then told him to go make him a cup of tea. Harry shuffled off miserably into the kitchen, and by the time he got back, the post had arrived, right into Uncle Vernon's lap. Harry could see 3 letters addressed in green ink. "I want," he began, but Uncle Vernon was tearing the letters to pieces before his very eyes. Uncle Vernon didn't go to work that day. He stayed at home and nailed up the letter box. As we can see, lovely image of Uncle Vernon from behind, putting quite a few planks on that doorway, more so than would even allow them to open the door, so I guess they're going out through the back door from here on out. "See," he explained to Aunt Petunia through a mouthful of nails, "if they can't deliver them, they'll just give up." "I'm not sure that'll work, Vernon." "Oh, these people's minds work in strange ways, Petunia. They're not like you and me," said Uncle Vernon, trying to knock in a nail with a piece of fruitcake Aunt Petunia had just brought him. On Friday, no fewer than 12 letters arrived for Harry. As they couldn't go through the letter box, they had been pushed under the door, slotted through the sides, and even a few forced through a small window in the downstairs toilet. Uncle Vernon stayed home again. After burning all the letters, he got out a hammer and nails and boarded up all the cracks on the front door and back doors so no one could go out. He hummed Tiptoe Through the Tulips as he worked, and jumped at small noises. I'm going to take a small pull stream, reporting the stream as NSFW. Please, no. I don't want to get banned for my 2 viewers. Licorice tea does you a world of good, let me tell you that. Nothing cozier. On Saturday, things began to get out of hand. 24 letters to Harry had found their way into the house, rolled up and hidden inside each of 24 eggs that their very confused mailman had handed Aunt Petunia through the living room window. While Uncle Vernon made furious telephone calls to the post office and to the dairy trying to find someone to complain to, Aunt Petunia shredded the letters in her food mixer. "Who on earth wants to talk to you this badly?" Dudley had asked Harry in amazement. On Sunday morning, Uncle Vernon sat down at the breakfast table looking tired and rather ill, but happy. "No post on Sundays," he reminded them happily as he spread marmalade on his newspapers. "No damn letters today." Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney as he spoke, and caught him sharply on the back of the head. Next moment, 30 or 40 letters came pelting out of the fireplace like bullets. The Dursleys ducked, but Harry leapt in the air trying to catch one. "Out! Out!" Uncle Vernon seized Harry around the waist and threw him into the hall. When Aunt Petunia and Dudley had run out with their arms over their faces, Uncle Vernon slammed the door shut. They could hear letters still streaming into the room, bouncing off the walls and floors. "That does it," said Uncle Vernon, trying to speak calmly, but pulling out great tufts of his mustache at the same time. "I want you all back here in 5 minutes, ready to leave. We're going away, just pack some clothes, no arguments." He looked so dangerous, with half his mustache missing, that no one dared argue. 10 minutes later, they had wrenched their way through the boarded-up doors and were in the car, speeding towards the motorway. Dudley was sniffling in the back seat. His father had hit him round the head for holding them up while he tried to pack his television, video games, and computer in his sports bag. They drove, and they drove. Even Aunt Petunia didn't dare ask where they were going. Every now and then, Uncle Vernon would take a sharp turn and drive in the opposite direction for a while. Shake him off, he would mutter whenever he did this. They didn't stop to eat or drink all day. By nightfall, Dudley was howling. He'd never had such a bad day in his life. He was hungry. He'd missed 5 television programs he'd wanted to see, and never gone so long without blowing up an alien on his computer. Uncle Vernon stopped at last outside a gloomy-looking hotel on the outskirts of the big city. Dudley and Harry shared a room with twin beds and damp, musty sheets. Dudley snored, but Harry stayed awake, sitting on the windowsill, staring down at the lights of passing cars and wondering. They ate stale cornflakes and cold tinned tomatoes on toast for breakfast the next day. They had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over. "Excuse me, but was one of you Mr. H. Potter? I only got about 100 of these waiting at the front desk." She held up the letter so they could read the greeting. "Mr. H. Potter, room 17, Railview Hotel, Cokeworth." Harry made a grab for the letter, but Uncle Vernon knocked his hand out of the way. The woman stared. "I'll take them," said Uncle Vernon, standing up quickly and following her into the dining room. "Wouldn't it just be better to go home, dear?" Aunt Petunia suggested timidly hours later, but Uncle Vernon didn't seem to hear her. Exactly what he was looking for, none of them knew. He drove them into the middle of the forest, got out, looked around, shook his head, got back into the car, and off they went again. The same thing happened in the middle of a plowed field, halfway across a suspension bridge, and at the top of a multi-story car park. "Teddy's gone mad, hasn't he?" Dudley asked Aunt Petunia dully late that afternoon. Uncle Vernon had parked his car at the coast, locked them all inside the car, and disappeared. It was starting to rain. Great drops beat on the roof of the car. Dudley sniveled. "It's Monday," he told his mother. "The Great Humberto's on tonight. I want to stay somewhere with a television." Monday. This reminded Harry of something. If it was Monday, and you could usually count on Dudley to know the days of the week because of television, then tomorrow, Tuesday, was Harry's 11th birthday. Of course, his birthdays were never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursleys had given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old stocks. Still, you weren't 11 every day. Uncle Vernon was back, and he was smiling. He was also carrying a long, thin package, and didn't answer Aunt Petunia when she asked what he had bought. "Found the perfect place," he said. "Come on, everyone out!" It was very cold outside the car. Uncle Vernon was pointing to what looked like a very large rock way out at sea. Perched atop the rock was the most miserable little shack you could imagine. One thing was certain. There was no television there. "Storms forecast for tonight," said Uncle Vernon gleefully, clapping his hands together, "and this gentleman's kindly agreed to lend us his boat." A toothless old gentleman came ambling up to them, pointing, with a rather wicked grin, at an old rowing boat bobbing in the iron-gray water. "I've got some rations," said Uncle Vernon, "so all aboard." It was freezing in the boat. Icy sea spray and rain crept down their necks, and a chilly wind whipped their faces. After what seemed like hours, they reached the rock where Uncle Vernon, slipping and sliding, led the way to a broken-down house. The inside was horrible. It smelled strongly of seaweed. The wind whistled through the gaps in the wooden walls, and the fireplace was damp and empty. There were only 2 rooms. And, by the ways, we've got a lovely picture of Uncle Vernon in a bright yellow raincoat paddling this rowboat towards a dingy little shack on the island, just ferociously trying to make his way away from these letters. Uncle Vernon's rations turned out to be a packet of crisps each and 4 bananas. He tried to start a fire with the empty crisp packets, but they just smoked up and shriveled. Could do with some of those letters now. Hey, he said cheerfully. He was in a good mood. Obviously, he thought nobody stood a chance of reaching them here in the storm to deliver the post. Harry privately agreed, though the thought didn't cheer him up at all. As night fell, the promised storm blew up around them. Spray from the high waves splattered the walls of the hut, and a fierce wind rattled the filthy windows. Aunt Petunia had found a few moldy blankets in the second room, and had made up a bed for Dudley on the moth-eaten sofa. She and Uncle Vernon had went off to the lumpy bed next door, and Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor he could, and curl up under the thinnest, most raggedest-looking blanket. The storm raged on more and more ferociously as the night went on. Harry couldn't sleep. He shivered and turned over, trying to get comfortable, his stomach rumbling with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned out by low rolls of thunder that started near midnight. The lighted dial of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa on his fat wrist, told Harry that he'd be 11 in 10 minutes' time. He lay and watched his birthday tick nearer and nearer, wondering if the Dursleys would remember at all, wondering where the letter writer was now. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard something creak outside. He hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, although it might be warmer if it did. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house in Privet Drive would be so full of letters that when they got back, he'd be able to steal one somehow. 3 minutes to go. Was that the sea slapping hard on the rock like that? And 2 minutes to go. What was that funny crunching noise? Was the rock crumbling into the sea? 1 minute to go, and he'd be 11. 30 seconds. 20. 10. 9. Maybe he'd wake up Dudley, just to annoy him. 3, 2, 1. Boom! The whole shack shivered, and Harry sat bolt upright, staring at the door. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. Ooh. Little bit of cliffhanger we're ending on there. I don't know about that one. Ooh. I wonder who's knocking at the door. Who's thudding at the door that Harry was hearing right on time for his 11th birthday. Well, that's chapter 3 of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. What's this? This Vernon looks a lot less rotund than movie Vernon, does he? Hashtag not my Vernon. I thought he's still pretty rotund, isn't he? That is a pudgy looking man you've got right there. You can see him. You're right, he's not actually quite as grotesque. I feel like that's insulting to the actor who played Uncle Vernon, who did a wonderful job with it, by the way. It's absolutely fantastic for the character. That's like I'm sure people actually, like with Umbridge, people actually hate the actress because of how visceral the character was and all of that, but he was great as Uncle Vernon. He's just well-rounded. He's just got big bones. No, don't judge our Vernon. Yeah, little bit of a cliffhanger though tonight. Got a good bit of setup. Harry's 11th birthday and all these letters. They're managing to reach him everywhere. We'll have to find out. Oh, hi Sahana. Thanks for joining us. HBC. Oh, Helena Bonham Carter. Helena Bonham Carter is a bit more of a known face though, so I think she's got a bit of an excuse with it. Although both the actors for Umbridge and Uncle Vernon are very famous British actors, it's just in Britain they are very famous, I guess, not quite to the same extent as you might imagine Helena Bonham Carter. Although, man, the casting for the Harry Potter movies was pretty freaking phenomenal. Loved it through and through. Okay, so, I don't know, I feel like we've got quite an interesting setup for our next chapter, which, by the way, is titled The Keeper of Keys. I won't show it to you quite yet, but we've got a very large figure our illustration for the Keeper of Keys, so we'll have to see what's going on with that next time. Umbridge, more like Dumbridge. Oh, what a sick burn. Holy hell. Don't know if she'll be able to deal with that. Also, worth noting, chapter for tomorrow is quite a bit longer. These chapters we've been looking at have been from 10 to 14 pages. The first two were 14, this one was 10. This is a bit shorter. Tomorrow's chapter, I believe, is a whopping, I think it's 16 pages, so not too much longer, but the stream should carry on for a bit longer. So Wednesday, tomorrow, as you know, we'll be on stream 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That puts it at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and for British summertime, 1:30 a.m. You guys all know this by now. I'm gonna stop pinging you in good faith that you can come on the stream. It is every night. One thing to note. Thursdays, as I've said, we're playing video games Thursdays. Don't worry, we'll still be doing the reading at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time p.m. So if you want to come just for the reading, come at 8:30. Otherwise, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to start with some Nier Automata. We're going to try and play for 2 hours. If it doesn't fill up 2 hours exactly, or if it looks like we're going to go over or anything like that, we'll accommodate as we go. We might switch over to a more casual game while we wait, like Fortnite or something, if there's a good wrapping point early. Otherwise, we'll get to it when we get to it. That being said, thank you all so much for joining me for the Sleepy stream tonight. I really appreciate it. If you like the stream, be sure to share it with your friends who might like Harry Potter, or people who just want to get to bed at 8:30 on a Tuesday. It is Tuesday, right? On a Tuesday evening. But that'll be all for now. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a lovely evening. Don't forget to stay cozy out there, friends.